The engine hummed under my hands. I pressed the brake at 65 miles per hour, and the tires squealed against wet asphalt. Steam rose from the hood. The cold air smelled of pine and asphalt. I glanced at the dashboard clock. 8:32 a.m. My coffee cup rattled on the passenger seat. The car smelled faintly of old leather and coffee. "John, you sure about this?" Margaret's voice cut through. Her breath fogged the window. I nodded without looking. The driveway was slick. Oak leaves clung to my tires. My mind replayed a memory from 1998 of my first principal meeting with Dr. Sanders. His office smelled of books and cedar polish. The light from the green-shaded lamp hit the contract on his desk. He handed me a pen. I touched the smooth surface. I remember the ink color, deep blue. That day, I promised to be meticulous with details. The office smelled warm, his voice calm, instructive. It mattered now. I parked outside Michael's suburban house. Humidity clung to my coat. The sunlight glinted off the wet roof tiles. Birds chirped faintly in the maple tree. I could hear a distant lawnmower. My hands tightened on Margaret's leather-bound journal. The faint smell of her perfume lingered in the air. I thought about every blocked call from Michael. 7 years of unanswered messages. $45,000 per year funneled into accounts I didn't know about. 7 long years of controlled silence. How had I not noticed earlier? How did Michael manipulate Lisa and Ethan so completely? I could see the driveway clearly, 120 feet to the front door. I recall the day in 2009, snow still on the ground. My colleague Mark had shown me a spreadsheet with every expense, every tuition payment. The smell of coffee brewing filled the small office. We had laughed about oversights. The laugh echoed in my memory. I realized attention to detail was my only weapon. I felt the sun on my back. My boots crunched over gravel. The mail slot rattled faintly. My mind calculated distances, timings, transfer dates. Internal alarms rang. I checked the numbers again. $315,000 total extracted over 7 years. Each figure screamed betrayal. I reviewed Margaret's notes for Ethan's drawings. Each sketch represented a week of absence, a blocked visit. My chest tightened slightly. I ran a hand over the leather cover. I took a deep breath. I felt the cool metal of the door handle under my fingertips. I rehearsed my approach mentally. Footsteps approached on the sidewalk. A neighbor waved. I nodded. The grass smelled wet. The house looked too peaceful. I could hear the faint tick of a wall clock. "Dad, don't even knock." Michael said stay back. The coffee shop smelled of roasted beans and damp winter air. I sat in the corner, steam from my cup fogging the window. 8:55 a.m. on the wall clock ticked steadily. The hardwood floors creaked under shifting chairs. I flipped open Margaret's journal again. Notes from 2012 spilled across the pages, detailing a school fundraiser where I had raised $12,000 in a single evening. The smell of old paper brought the memory vividly. I remembered Mrs. Franklin's smile and the scratch of her pen as she tallied each donation. That was the year Ethan had first tried to organize a bake sale. My fingers traced the margins, counting every scribbled figure. The faint scent of cinnamon pastries still lingered in my mind. I could hear the hum of the espresso machine and the low murmur of other patrons. Outside, the wind rattled the awning, carrying the smell of wet asphalt. I glanced at the counter. The tip jar had $18 in quarters. My mind raced. 7 years of blocked visits. 7 years of Michael controlling every interaction. I opened the app on my phone. The screen glowed faintly. Each bank alert reminded me of $45,000 yearly transfers. I calculated totals, confirmed $315,000 extracted. Internal thoughts spun. How had I not caught this? How could Michael manipulate Lisa and Ethan so completely? The journal lay open on the table. Notes about Ethan's birthday parties, school fees, and extra lessons provided context I had never realized. Margaret had tracked every event meticulously. I sipped my coffee, bitter and dark. I could hear the faint hiss of the steam wand. The sunlight angled through the front window, casting long shadows on the tables. I compared dates in the journal to the alerts on my phone. Discrepancies jumped out. Tuition payments Lisa claimed to have made were inconsistent. My pulse quickened slightly. I felt the leather of my coat under my fingertips. Each page I turned was a thread leading to the larger tapestry Michael had woven. I remembered 2007, a staff meeting with Principal Henderson. He had praised my attention to detail, pointing at the $3,500 discrepancy in the art department budget. The smell of varnish and polish had been strong in that room. That precision had always been my edge. I considered Ethan's drawings and notes. They were innocent, but they revealed the isolation Michael had imposed. I glanced at the street outside. Frost covered the sidewalk. Cars passed by silently. I took out my pen, noting the dates, amounts, and interactions. I could see 7 years condensed into small numbers and observations. Each quarter counted, each message logged. Internal calculations raced. The $45,000 annual transfers, the block calls at 7:15 a.m. and 5:30 p.m., the forced narrative Michael spun for Lisa, all pointed to a pattern of control. I closed the journal gently, the weight of the leather grounding me. I could feel the warmth of the cup seep into my hands. Margaret's annotations emphasized dates and people I had trusted. I realized the scale of deception. The hum of the heater filled the room. Shadows shifted across the wall. I could hear footsteps approaching from the street. A notification pinged from my phone. I opened it. It was an email from Ethan's school secretary, time-stamped 7:45 a.m. Mr. Miller, Lisa paid $1,200 for after-school lessons yesterday. She said the payment was covered already by your account. The library smelled of old paper and wax polish. I pushed open the heavy oak door. The light inside was dim, filtered through green-stained glass. 9:15 a.m. The heater clicked intermittently. I set my briefcase on the polished table. A faint scent of leather and ink filled the air. I ran my fingers over the spines of books. Each title reminded me of 2003 when I had helped Principal Jacobs organize the annual $7,500 scholarship fundraiser. The smell of coffee and old paper had been strong that afternoon. He had smiled approvingly at the ledger. That memory gave me a methodical calm. I opened Margaret's journal again. The notes detailed Ethan's school payments, $1,200 last week, $3,400 last month, every transaction carefully logged. My pulse quickened. I compared the entries to the bank alerts on my phone. Discrepancies leapt off the screen. Internal analysis. Michael had been falsifying receipts for years. I traced payments from 2014 to 2021. Total extracted, $315,000. The quiet of the library amplified my heartbeat. I could hear the faint hum of the fluorescent lights. Dust motes floated in the sunbeams. I sipped my coffee. Bitter, strong, grounding. I counted 3 empty chairs at the back. I imagined Michael explaining this to Lisa. I could see him dismissing Ethan's requests. Internal thoughts churned. 7 years of manipulation, 7 years of isolation for Ethan. Each dollar a symbol of control. Each blocked call a stitch in his web. I noted the dates of all electronic communications. I realized the pattern spanned every holiday, every birthday, every summer break. Margaret's notes gave me exact hours: 7:05 a.m., 3:15 p.m., 5:40 p.m. I recalled 2010, a parent-teacher conference with Mrs. Langston. Her handwriting was neat, inkjet black. She had complimented my organizational skills. The smell of wet pine outside the classroom lingered in memory. That precision had always been my edge. I could feel the leather of my briefcase under my fingers. My eyes scanned the library's map for exits. I measured distances to windows and doors. I needed mobility. A sudden notification pinged on my phone. I opened the document from the school finance office. It listed all payments Lisa claimed she made herself. I ran my finger down the columns. Every payment had a parent's signature, a date, a time. I recognized the inconsistencies instantly. My mind calculated total diverted, $12,500 last summer alone. Internal monologue. Michael had been orchestrating this entire time. Ethan had been unwittingly caught in the middle. Each entry confirmed deception, manipulation, and control. I closed the journal slowly. I stood. The wood floor creaked under my weight. Sunlight flickered across the desks. I checked the clock. 9:27 a.m. The air smelled faintly of wax and ink. I felt a surge of resolve. I would confront this methodically. No mistakes. No hesitation. I checked the ledger one final time. Everything aligned. I calculated distances to the car, the street, the nearest legal office. My briefcase contained Margaret's journal and all financial statements. I locked eyes on the main entrance. I made my decision. I would act immediately. The library was silent. I slid the journal into my briefcase. The door handle was cold under my fingers. I pulled the door open. I stepped into the morning sun. Frost crunched under my shoes. I walked briskly to my car, parked 142 feet away. Internal analysis. Timing had to be precise. I counted the seconds for each possible interruption. The engine hummed when I started. Headlights cut through the thin fog. I felt the weight of responsibility settle in my chest. Each gear shift brought me closer to action. My mind rehearsed the exact sequence. I pressed the button to call Laura Bennett. Phone displayed 9:32 a.m. I hit dial. Internal calculations confirmed readiness. Nothing could go wrong now. I whispered to myself, not letting the engine noise carry my words. Every detail matched the plan. The phone rang once, twice, then a click. A recorded message played. John Miller, your daughter has submitted another $1,200 payment claiming you approved it. Check the date, October 14th. The morning air in the municipal park was crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp leaves and pine needles. I gripped the handle of my cane and walked slowly along the gravel path. 9:55 a.m. The sun cut through thin clouds at a 45-degree angle, casting sharp shadows across the benches. A jogger's shoes slapped the wet ground, echoing softly. I paused, recalling 2005 when my colleague Mr. Daniels had insisted I double-check every grant submission for the $25,000 science award. The smell of ink and printer toner lingered in that office. He had patted my shoulder, saying, "Attention to detail wins the day." That lesson resonated now. I opened my briefcase on a nearby bench. The leather smelled faintly of Margaret's perfume. The pages of her journal fell open to Ethan's school records, each entry annotated with precise times: 7:15 a.m., 3:40 p.m., 5:55 p.m. I noted payments: $1,200 for after-school tutoring, $350 for supplies, $1,600 for summer camp. My pulse quickened. Michael had controlled these every detail for 7 years. Internal calculations word. The total siphoned from my accounts, $315,000. Each figure represented deception, manipulation, and exclusion. I could feel the sun on my back and the chill of the autumn wind. Leaves rustled around my feet, damp and brown. The nearby fountain bubbled quietly, its sound oddly comforting. I recalled 2011, a budget review meeting with my mentor, Dr. Hargrove. The classroom smelled of chalk dust and dry erasers. He had handed me a ledger and asked me to verify every line. I had spent 3 hours scrutinizing numbers, correcting errors totaling $4,750. The memory sharpened my resolve. I could hear the distant traffic, muffled by the thick trees. I sipped my coffee, bitter and hot. Each page I turned confirmed inconsistencies. Lisa's claims, Michael's manipulations, and missing receipts. Internal monologue. The scale of control extended beyond money. Michael had isolated me from family, distorted Ethan's perception. Each signature, each note, each transaction was orchestrated. I mapped out the route to the legal office. Distance, 2.4 miles, 8 minutes if traffic held. I checked the time. 10:07 a.m. Precision was critical. I scanned the park for witnesses. A man walked his dog 20 feet away. I adjusted my grip on the journal. My thoughts raced. Every step calculated, every action deliberate. I noted 3 potential interruptions. I rehearsed the phone call to Laura Bennett. I visualized handing over the evidence. I thought about the 18 months Michael had been diverting funds. I measured breathing and pulse. My eyes fell on a discarded flyer on the bench. It smelled of printer ink and rain, a reminder of deadlines long past. I glanced at Ethan's recent drawing. A school bus, meticulously numbered seats, 24 in total. Internal reflection. The pattern was unmistakable. I pushed to my feet, cane tapping on stone. I felt the journal under my arm, heavy, grounding me. I started walking briskly to the car, frost crunching under shoes. Engine started at 10:12 a.m. Wind hit my face, cold and sharp. I pressed the accelerator carefully, maintaining 25 miles per hour along the winding road. Internal analysis. Timing could not falter. I checked the rearview mirror. Empty streets, no distractions. I dialed Laura Bennett's number. Phone displayed 10:15 a.m. I held my breath. First ring. Second. Then voicemail activated. I left a message with precise instructions, citing amounts, dates, and times. Laura. All transactions confirmed. Total $315,000. Dates from March 2014 through October 2021. Call me back. I hung up. My hands were steady. The car smelled faintly of wet leather. Internal planning. Next step would be confrontation at her office. I pulled the journal from under my coat. Pages fluttered, showing summer camp payments, tuition, and receipts. I felt resolve harden. There would be no delay. A sudden notification pinged. I opened it. It was an email from the after-school program. John Miller, we received a $1,600 payment for Ethan's summer program dated June 21st. Lisa confirmed it as your account. Please verify. The municipal library parking lot smelled of wet asphalt and gasoline. I stepped out of the car. My shoes crunched on the gravel. 10:25 a.m. The faint hum of traffic drifted in from the street. I carried Margaret's journal under my arm. The leather smelled faintly of cedar polish. I noticed the building across the street, a coffee shop with green awnings and a display of $4,500 worth of pastries in the window. My eyes scanned the lot. 3 empty spots, 1 car idling at the entrance. I recalled 2008, sitting in Ms. Carter's office reviewing a $6,200 grant proposal. The smell of ink and fresh paper had lingered in the small office. She had smiled and said, "You catch every detail that others miss." That memory sharpened my focus. I crossed the street, feeling the chill wind cut through my jacket. My fingers traced the spine of the journal. Every entry for Ethan's tuition and summer camp payments from 2014 to 2021 was marked with exact dates and times. 7:15 a.m., 3:40 p.m., 5:55 p.m. Payments totaled $315,000 over 7 years. I counted each transfer: $1,200 for tutoring, $1,600 for summer camp, $350 for supplies. My pulse quickened. I analyzed how Michael had manipulated Lisa and Ethan for all these years. Internal thoughts. He controlled every detail, every dollar, every interaction. The coffee shop smelled faintly of roasted beans and sugar. Heat radiated from the vent. I could hear the hiss of the espresso machine. I opened the journal to Margaret's annotations. She had noted dates of bank transfers, emails, and messages with uncanny precision. I compared them to my bank alerts. Patterns matched perfectly. 7 years of deception, 7 years of isolation for Ethan, 7 years of being cut out. My hand rested on the journal. Internal reflection. Michael had been controlling Lisa since 2015, 18 years after he married her. The triggering event had been his lost $120,000 business contract, which led him to exert control over our family. He wanted absolute authority over my interactions with Ethan and influence over Lisa's decisions. I looked at the window, the autumn light reflecting off the wet sidewalk. Internal calculations raced. Distance from my car to the coffee shop, 220 feet. Time until lunch break, 30 minutes. Potential witnesses in the lot, for adults. I set the journal on the table and opened my laptop. The screen reflected in my glasses. I traced every email timestamp and payment. Internal analysis. Michael had created a full narrative, controlling perception and actions. I took a deep breath. Steam from the coffee swirled in front of my eyes. My hands tightened around the journal. I planned my next moves with precision. I could see 3 possible routes home, 1 route to Laura Bennett's office. I made notes. Call her at 11 a.m. Bring all documents. Verify all figures. $315,000 total. Internal monologue. I had never realized the depth of the deception, the span of manipulation, and the exploitation of trust. Each number screamed betrayal. The coffee smelled richer now, a bitter grounding aroma. The hum of the heater added a low vibration. I sipped carefully. I noticed a notice pinned to the bulletin board, a flyer about upcoming community events, distances listed: 0.3 miles to the playground, 0.8 miles to the town hall, 1.2 miles to the library. I considered using these routes for observation. Internal thoughts, precision, patience, and timing mattered. I packed the journal, laptop, and all printouts into my briefcase. I glanced once more at the lot. The idling car had left. The street was quiet. Internal calculations. If I left now, I could reach Laura's office in 9 minutes. I opened the laptop one last time. Emails from the school, bank, and summer camp were all displayed. Internal reflection. The trail of control extended from 2014 through October 2021. Every payment, every blocked call, every manipulated message was documented. I exhaled. The hum of the heater faded behind my focus. I looked at the street clock. 10:42 a.m. Internal strategy formed. I would act methodically. I would confront the manipulation. The journal and laptop were my tools. I stepped toward the car, keys in hand, gravel crunching beneath my feet. Internal reasoning, timing, order, and execution would dictate success. I started the engine. Radio was off. The leather smelled faintly of cedar. I drove slowly toward Laura Bennett's office, 1.5 miles away. Internal monologue. Every second counted. I could not afford distraction. I checked the traffic, observed 4 cars at intersections. The plan was clear. At 10:52 a.m., I pulled into a parking spot across the street. I grabbed my briefcase, journal inside. Internal assessment. Michael's deception was fully documented. I walked toward the office door. The receptionist glanced up. I smiled faintly, placed the bag on the counter. She pointed to a letter with bold type. John Miller. All financial documents verified. Total transferred $315,000 over 7 years. Signed, Laura Bennett. The courthouse parking garage smelled faintly of motor oil and wet concrete. I gripped my briefcase, walking toward the elevator at 11:02 a.m. The fluorescent lights hummed above. My shoes echoed against the hard gray floor. I recalled 2006, helping my friend Peter organize the $8,500 charity gala. The aroma of polished wood and wine lingered in my memory. He had whispered, "Every detail counts, John." That lesson anchored me now. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the 5th floor, counting the flicker of lights. My pulse was steady. Internal thoughts. Every second mattered, every movement observed, every document in place. The doors opened. I walked into the legal office, carpet soft under my feet, faint scent of printer ink and lemon polish in the air. Laura Bennett's office smelled of coffee and aged books. Sunlight slanted through tall windows. I placed the briefcase on the mahogany desk. My eyes scanned the room. 2 chairs, a file cabinet, a window view of the street 150 feet below. I rehearsed mentally. Timing, phrasing, evidence, confrontation. Internal reflection. Michael would have no idea what I had uncovered. I opened the laptop, pulling up every bank transfer, every email, every message. Dates, amounts, times, $1,200, $1,600, $350. I had total control over how this unfolded. Then the phone rang. Laura's assistant announced, "Michael Thompson is online too. Claims urgent matter." I pressed the speaker button. Michael's voice was sharp. "Lisa said you wouldn't notice. I handled the $315,000. Every transfer, every blocked call." I froze slightly. 3 years, 6 months, and 24 missed visits. Perfectly executed. I opened Margaret's journal. Pages rustled. Ethan would never know. We kept him away exactly as planned. Michael continued. Unaware, I was listening directly. I logged each $45,000 annual payment, every October, March, and July. Lisa followed orders. No mistakes. I traced each line, confirmed. $1,200 here, $1,600 there, $350 supplies each month. Internal calculations. The pattern spanned 7 years, exact amounts, exact dates, orchestrated isolation. If John tries to contest, we block him further. 24 instances already documented. Michael laughed lightly. By the end, even Ethan thought it was normal. 7 years of control. My hands rested on the leather of the briefcase, Margaret's journal underneath. Internal reasoning. He admitted everything. Dates, amounts, confessions, all verbalized. Every entry cross-referenced, undeniable. The room smelled faintly of coffee, printer toner, and polished wood. My pulse steadied. My fingers traced the edge of the journal. I measured my breaths, felt the weight of the evidence. Internal analysis. Nothing could be denied now. Timing, preparation, patience, observation, all in place. I stood, boots on the carpet, shifted weight. The clock ticked 11:18 a.m. I reached for the phone to make the next move. Decision crystallized. One action, irreversible. I pressed the call button to authorize immediate legal action against all accounts. Internal reflection. There was no turning back. Every calculation confirmed. Every record accurate. The briefcase clicked shut. Keys in hand. I stepped toward the door. Internal planning complete. I spoke aloud, steady, clear, without hesitation. Execute the filings now. The downtown civic center smelled of freshly cut grass and asphalt from the nearby parking lot. I stepped out of my car at 11:45 a.m. The sun reflected off the glass facade, warm and bright. A faint breeze carried the scent of damp concrete. I clutched Margaret's journal tightly. My shoes tapped against the polished stone steps. I recalled 2013, when my colleague Susan had guided me through a $9,800 fundraising audit. The faint smell of printer ink and old ledger paper lingered in memory. She had said, "Accuracy saves reputations, John." That lesson guided me now. I entered the building, the air conditioned and cool against my skin. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. I could hear muffled conversations from the lobby. I placed the briefcase on a nearby bench. The leather smelled faintly of cedar. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching dust in its beams. I reviewed the financial summaries in the journal. $1,200 for tutoring on March 15th, $1,600 summer camp fee on June 21st, $350 for supplies on April 3rd. Each number a marker of 7 years of control. Internal thoughts. Michael had orchestrated every detail, from payments to blocked visits. I recalled Ethan's birthday parties and school events, meticulously tracked by Margaret. The entries revealed manipulations I had not seen before. I analyzed the sequence. October 14th, $1,200. July 19th, $350. March 22nd, $1,600. Timing, precision, pattern. I rehearsed the confrontation in my mind. Internal calculation, steps to the office door, proximity to the receptionist, distance from the elevators, 18 paces. I checked the clock, 11:52 a.m. Internal reflection. Every detail in place, every record confirmed. I spotted Michael entering the lobby from across the hall. He had changed his tie, dark blue with subtle red stripes. He smiled. Faintly, unaware I was here. "John," he said, approaching. "You really think you can contest this?" I kept my expression neutral. He glanced at the briefcase under my arm. "Lisa and I handled it perfectly. $315,000 total. Every transfer tracked, every blocked call logged." His voice rose slightly. "No one knew what we were doing. 3 years, 6 months, 24 isolated visits." I adjusted the journal inside the briefcase. "And Ethan never suspected a thing," he continued, laughing. By the end, he thought it was normal. Each October, March, and July, the funds moved seamlessly. I remained calm. Every payment precise. Every deception calculated. He gestured toward the reception desk. Even the school records matched. Lisa followed orders perfectly. I noted internal details. Posture, gestures, tone, inflection. Internal reflection. He was revealing more than he realized. "It was effortless," he said, almost boastfully. "No mistakes. 0 errors in 7 years." My eyes scanned the lobby. The carpet pattern, 24-foot distance to the elevators, ceiling height 14 feet. Internal reasoning. All confirmations accounted for. My fingers rested on the leather of the briefcase. Internal calculations. Each payment, each interaction verified. I observed his watch, 11:55 a.m., gold-plated, face scratched from wear. "Even the bank statements matched my calculations," he said. "Every $45,000 annual transfer aligned exactly with our schedule." Internal assessment. This was the peak. Evidence undeniable, confession accidental, power dynamics clear. Margaret's journal lay open, inked annotations starkly visible. Internal monologue. Michael had underestimated my attention to detail. Internal pulse, steady, deliberate. Internal reflection. Timing, sequence, and methodical preparation were my advantage. I made the decision. One action now. Irreversible. Internal command. Execute immediately. I lifted the briefcase, opened it, and pressed the intercom button to authorize the formal filings to freeze and review every account involved in the 7-year manipulation. The City Hall conference room smelled of varnish and old paper. I stepped through the glass doors at 12:15 p.m. Sunlight reflected off polished wood panels, warm on my face. The faint hum of the ventilation system filled the quiet room. I recalled 2016, meeting my colleague Rachel in her office to review a $5,200 grant proposal. The smell of coffee and printer toner lingered in my memory. She had said, "Details make or break you, John." That precision anchored me. I approached the long mahogany table. My briefcase rested on the polished surface. The leather smelled faintly of cedar. Sunlight filtered through blinds, casting stripes across the floor. I opened the journal, notes meticulously marking Ethan's summer camp and tutoring payments. $1,600 June 21st, $1,200 March 15th, $350 April 3rd. Internal thoughts. Every dollar tracked, 7 years of control, pattern undeniable. I glanced at the glass door and the security camera, 14 feet above the floor. My pulse remained steady. I rehearsed each sentence, each question, each countermeasure. I could hear my shoes against the hardwood, echoing softly. "Michael," I said, voice calm. "We need to talk about the payments." He leaned back in his chair, adjusting his watch, gold face scratched. 11:20 a.m. "John, I don't see any problem. Lisa handled it." He smiled faintly, unaware of my review. All transfers matched, $315,000 total. No errors. I opened the journal, laid out the evidence. Ethan's visits blocked, 3 years, 6 months, 24 instances. Payments made without approval. "You know this." He laughed lightly. It was smooth, calculated. Every October, March, and July. No mistakes. 0 errors. I held my gaze steady. Even the school records aligned. Lisa followed instructions perfectly. He gestured toward the files, oblivious. I calculated every dollar, every date, every blocked call. Internal analysis. The web of control clear. Internal reflection. Each date confirmed, each amount verified. My pulse steady, hands on leather briefcase. I considered my options. Timing, method, authority, all aligned. Internal calculations, sequence of filing, notifications to bank, formal verification. Michael remained unaware, confident, arrogant. I could see the pattern. $45,000 annual transfers, exact dates, exact times. Internal monologue. He misjudged my observation skills. He underestimated my methodical preparation. I laid out copies for the legal team. Internal thoughts. One decision could dismantle 7 years of control. Sunlight glinted off the polished wood. I adjusted my watch. 12:27 p.m. Internal reflection. Next steps critical. I stepped back from the table. My shoes scuffed softly against the floor. I opened the filing folder. Internal reasoning. Everything confirmed. Every account traced. Every transfer matched the journal. I exhaled. Internal pulse. Ready for resolution. I reached forward and pressed my signature on the authorization form. Internal calculation. Timestamp 12:28 p.m. My action would trigger the freeze, notification, and formal investigation. Internal certainty. Irreversible. The weight of 7 years of deception lifted slightly. I slid the form across the table. Internal reflection. Michael's control was ending. I could feel the shift. Internal observation. Staff noticed. Tension in the air. I looked down at the documents, confirming all. $315,000 total, 24 blocked visits, 7 years of manipulated payments. Internal determination. No turning back now. I pushed the pen firmly across the page, signing every authorization. The town library rooftop smelled of rain-soaked asphalt and ozone. I leaned on the railing at 12:55 p.m. The wind was cold, brushing across my jacket, making the pages of Margaret's journal flap. I remembered 2014, a meeting with my friend Daniel at the community center. The smell of marker ink and polished wood lingered. He had said, "Numbers don't lie, John." That memory sharpened my attention now. I spread the journal across the ledge, sunlight glinting off the cover. Notes detailing Ethan's tuition, after-school fees, and summer camp payments were precise. $1,600 June 21st, $1,200 March 15th, $350 April 3rd. I counted blocked visit instances, 24 times over 7 years. Internal analysis. Every detail confirmed Michael's manipulation. The city noises below drifted up. Sirens, car horns, distant chatter. Internal reflection. He had orchestrated each move with meticulous timing. I noted the distance to the parking lot. 160 feet, exit clear. I scanned the surrounding rooftops for observation points. Internal thoughts, timing, sequence, and visibility mattered. I traced each payment in the journal against bank records. $315,000 total siphoned from accounts, confirmed by dates, times, and amounts. I could feel the breeze lifting pages slightly. Internal reasoning. The pattern extended through every October, March, and July, each transfer deliberate. The hum of the HVAC system echoed in the rooftop air. Sunlight struck the edge of the journal, highlighting annotations in blue ink. I considered the next step carefully, mentally rehearsing each sequence of calls, visits, and notifications. Internal monologue. No misstep could be allowed. I glanced down at Ethan's school calendar, noting exact days: January 14th, May 3rd, September 22nd. Internal reflection. Michael had masked every action with plausibility. I sipped my lukewarm coffee. The bitter aroma grounded my focus. I adjusted the journal under my arm. Internal thoughts. Each documented payment, each blocked call, each orchestrated visit contributed to a web of control. I observed shadows cast by nearby buildings. Internal reflection. Timing of actions and sequence of events critical. I picked up the pen to finalize notes. Internal reasoning. The evidence chain must be unbroken. I verified amounts. $1,200, $1,600, $350, repeated in sequence, adding to $315,000. Internal pulse. Steady, deliberate. I checked the time. 1:02 p.m. Internal analysis. All corroborated. Every entry consistent. I adjusted the leather strap of the briefcase. Internal reflection. The confrontation had to follow precise steps. I could feel the wind whip past, rustling the pages. I looked down at the streets below. Internal thoughts. Executing the plan would shift the entire family dynamic. I considered Michael's likely reaction, timing, and awareness. Internal calculation. Immediate action would leverage evidence, authority, and documentation. I stepped toward the edge slightly, balancing carefully. Internal insight. Nothing would be undone once set in motion. I spread the journal and documents across the ledge. Internal reasoning. This visibility confirms the sequence and scale. I verified every date. March 15th, June 21st, April 3rd. Internal reflection. Each figure corroborates the timeline of deception. I could hear a distant school bell and faint voices of children in playgrounds 0.4 miles away. Internal monologue. The financial manipulation, isolation, and 7-year pattern were undeniable. I stepped back, feeling the cold concrete under my shoes. Internal calculation. The trajectory of change was complete. I exhaled slowly. Internal realization. Michael's control was unraveling with this action. I pressed my hand firmly against the top of the journal, securing all pages, then lifted the documents to hand-deliver them to the authorities, knowing that this single act would forever alter every relationship and every calculated control Michael had maintained. The riverside park smelled of damp earth and fallen leaves. I walked along the paved path at 1:30 p.m. Sunlight bounced off the water in flashes. The faint sound of ducks echoed across the small pond. I recalled 2012, having lunch with my friend Angela at the town cafe. The aroma of baked bread and roasted coffee beans lingered in memory. She had said, "John, clarity in numbers and actions prevents mistakes." That memory guided me now. I sat on a wooden bench, feeling its worn grain under my fingers. The journal lay open on my lap. I could see every detail of Ethan's payments. $1,600 for summer camp June 21st, $1,200 tutoring March 15th, $350 for art supplies April 3rd. Internal reflection. Michael's control spanned 7 years, 24 blocked visits, and countless manipulated interactions. I observed the sunlight reflecting off the water, glinting against the bank railing. Internal thoughts. Every payment, every blocked call, every forced narrative now documented and confirmed. I took a slow breath. The air smelled faintly of wet grass and pine. I could hear a dog barking 50 feet away and children laughing 0.3 miles across the park. Internal analysis. The pattern was irrefutable. I examined the journal notes on bank transfers and email timestamps. March 15th, July 19th, October 14th, $315,000 total. Internal monologue. Michael had built a fortress of control that now could be dismantled. I considered the steps ahead, the timing of notifications, and legal filings. I sipped my coffee, bitter and grounding. Shadows shifted across the path as the wind swirled leaves in spirals. I felt resolve harden within me. Internal reasoning, precision, method, and documentation ensured the outcome. I glanced at Ethan's drawing of his school bus. 24 seats. Each marking represented absence and deception. I could see the city streets in the distance. Sunlight glinted off car windshields. I checked the time. 1:42 p.m. Internal reflection. Every record corroborated, every interaction timed, every dollar accounted for. I noted internal emotions, a mixture of relief, focus, and determination. The journal's leather felt cool under my fingertips. Internal calculation. Next moves executed perfectly, no margin for error. I observed the security cameras across the path, their lenses catching reflections of sunlight. Internal insight. The web of manipulation exposed, the control unraveling. I stood and stretched slightly, feeling the wind on my face. I placed the journal and documents into my briefcase. Internal thought. The weight of 7 years' deception lay squarely in my hands. I rose, adjusted my coat. Internal reasoning, authority, documentation, and methodical action would cement accountability. I took 3 careful steps toward the parking area. Internal monologue. Everything now shifted. Michael's dominion was ending. I checked my watch. 1:50 p.m. Internal reflection. Timing, precision, and sequence all confirmed. I opened the briefcase, checked all documents, ensured the evidence was intact. Internal analysis. Every payment, $1,200, $1,600, $350, accounted for, total $315,000. I lifted the briefcase, felt its weight, the leather firm under my grip. Internal realization. The path forward clear, irreversible. I started walking toward my car. Internal reasoning. This journey restored order and accountability. I exhaled slowly. Internal insight. 7 years of hidden control revealed through numbers and meticulous records. I approached the vehicle, leather briefcase in hand. Internal calculation. The next drive would finalize the sequence. I opened the door. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and autumn leaves. Internal reflection. Every action, now executed with precision. I sat in the driver's seat, hands on the steering wheel, feeling its cool grip. Internal monologue. Michael's deception could no longer manipulate events. I adjusted the rearview mirror, sunlight reflecting off its edge. Internal thought. The evidence in my possession would correct 7 years of misdirection. I started the engine. Internal insight, justice, clarity, and careful preparation converge now. I glanced at the dashboard clock. 1:57 p.m. Internal reflection. Every document, every note, every payment verified and accounted for. I took a deep breath. Internal conclusion. The past, meticulously documented, informs a present that is fully mine. I drove forward along the winding path. Internal observation. The sunlight reflected in the river, 120 feet to the bank. Internal monologue. Every moment of planning, every careful observation, every payment totaling $315,000 leads to this restored clarity. I passed the playground where Ethan had played 24 times over the years. Internal reflection, patience, precision, and documentation yield enduring lessons. I turned onto the main avenue. Internal insight, trust can be rebuilt, but only when evidence and observation align. I slowed at the crosswalk, feeling the pavement cool under the tires. Internal reasoning, control and manipulation can be undone, order restored, and accountability ensured. I exhaled again. Internal reflection, every calculation, every record, every blocked call now framed a corrected narrative. I passed the library where Margaret had first taught me diligence. Internal monologue, clarity, attention to detail, and measured action shape life. I parked by the riverside bench where sunlight glinted off the water, 0.4 miles from the school. Internal reflection, each lesson, each oversight, each observation solidifies the path forward. I sat and looked at the river. Internal conclusion, life unfolds through careful attention, deliberate action, and patient observation. I thought of Ethan smiling at his $1,600 summer camp gift and $1,200 tutoring payments now transparent. Internal philosophy. Truth survives meticulous records, patience, and clarity of purpose. Internal reflection. Control can shift when observation and evidence converge. Internal meditation. Each action shapes consequence. Every number tells a story, and every detail reflects the past. I rested my hands on the briefcase, looked at the water, and understood the enduring law. Patience reveals deceit, precision restores balance, and clarity ensures justice.